of entertainment, current events, and Hollywood. Don't miss Creator to Creators, hosted by the filmmaker Meosha, known for the Shudder hit documentary Horror Noir and the acclaimed film Anatomy of an Anti-Hero, Redemption. This show features interviews with filmmakers and creatives from around the globe. Join the fun with guest celebrities and gain valuable insights. Subscribe now and follow Creator to Creators.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Creators to Creators today. Today we have a special guest.
Monte Schulz. Hi.
Hi, welcome. Good morning. Good morning to you as well.
Aloha.
Aloha, exactly. So I love, going back to the beginning. I always say the beginning charts our trajectory in life, our little habits we pick up along the way, follow us into our adulthood. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. What was that like? And when did you kind of get into, the world of writing and how did that happen?
I grew up, I was born in Colorado Springs. 1 year my parents were there. They were both from Minneapolis, St. Paul. And in 1958, we moved to California because my mom was restless and wanted to move. And so I grew up in Northern California on a 20-acre property outside of a small town population, about 3,000. So I'm essentially a country boy, a small town boy. And so I was a reader when I was young, but a pretty selective reader. I guess I was equally interested in sports and history. But I read H.G. Wells and Jules Verne and Ray Bradbury and other science fiction stories. Also, I remember really liking The Land of Oz. I liked it better than The Wizard of Oz. It's a sequel, but I really liked it. Let's see, I read... what is it? The Phantom Toll Booth was one of my favorite books. So anyway, I read books and then going through school, I was initially I thought I'd be an English major, but I was a language major because I was interested in studying World War II. So I wanted to learn German, and I always had French in school, and I also was entranced by Greek mythology, all of which, not the languages, but the Greek mythology and appears in my books in different places, classical studies. But when I entered college, after my first year, I just decided that I liked the idea of writing in terms of music. I started writing like a lot of songwriters do, put my own lyrics to someone else's song. And the first one was Rolling Stones' Ruby Tuesday. I just changed the lyrics. And then when I got home from college that year, I bought a guitar or actually used my mom's guitar and started writing my own music. And then I had, since my dad saw I had a gift for lyric poetry, he had me read Thomas Wolfe, the lyrical passage of Thomas Wolfe and John Steinbeck, and then introduced me to Carl Sandburg and Edgar Lee Masters, the Spoon River Anthology. And then although I'd written music for 2 years, I went into writing first poetry, then prose, and that's where I basically ended up where I am now.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's always so cool that growing up, in that kind of world. And also, and I'm curious too, I read too that growing up as the son of, knowing that your father did something that he made something that was so like timeless, right? Classic. How did your early exposure to the creative, that creativity shape your own artistry identity, not through your father's legacy, but shape your own? But I'm sure that was a great start into it, right?
Well, I get asked all the time, what was it like growing up with a famous father? But my dad was not famous when I was growing up. He was not famous till I was a teenager. His Peanuts appeared in the newspaper, just with all the other comics. I don't remember even reading in the newspaper, but when it was gathered, the years were collected into books. He brought home Peanuts, little book, and then more Peanuts, and then Good Grief, more Peanuts, and then a book called Snoopy. And so I would just read the books. He'd bring the book, and I'd sit down in the living room and read them. And I also like Miss Peach. As I just told Dad at one point, I think I like Miss Peach better than Peanuts. And I couldn't draw, so in fact, my brother and I both made little comic strip characters, and Dad just know they're not very good because we couldn't draw, which is fine. That was, gotta be honest. I didn't think they were very good either. You can't be a kid and fool yourself. So anyway, no, Dad didn't become famous until three things happened in the early '60s. Would have been that little book, "Happiness is a Warm Puppy" by Determined Productions, Connie Boucher, and then simultaneously, and a little bit after, came Clark Gessner's music for "You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown," and then they got the idea based on animation done for Peanuts characters in a Ford commercial. They Dad hooked up with Lee Mendelson and Bill Melendez. Lee Mendelson, the producer, and Bill Melendez was an animator, and they did Charlie Brown Christmas. And those three things then entered the popular culture.
I
And
see.
so by the time they're in popular culture again, I was a teenager. So there's no sense whatsoever of growing up with a famous father. He just had that job, just like my other classmates. One father owned the men's store in town. Two of them had doctors as parents. Two of them had their fathers owned I think a Pontiac dealer, another a Chevrolet dealer. So it was just his job. It's just what he did. And not only that, but he wasn't what he did was not uh, paid attention to by my classmates. So I was really surprised actually when in fifth grade somebody says, "Oh, I really like Charlie Brown or something like that." I was like, "What? You know about that? I didn't know anything. Didn't know anybody knew about that." So does that answer the question? But then Dad. My mom was also very creative with music
Nice.
and interior design, and my dad, of course, with writing and books were always around. And when I became old enough to read in my early 20s and wanted to be a writer, as I said, Dad sort of influenced me in that direction. He was pleased. He said that he waited my whole life to be able to talk to him about books and suggest books to him. So that's kind of the relationship we had after that.
Did you ever feel like that kind of that it like pressure at all to follow in that footsteps, or because coming from a creative family, like how like you feel like you have to, okay, now you have the mantle, I have to carry it and be successful.
No, because I couldn't draw. So there was no, like, for example, Stephen King's sons write. One of them, he goes by the name Joe Hill, but he writes just like his dad, which is kind of funny, even using caps where Stephen King used it. I thought it was really
Interesting.
fun. But that gave him an entree into the world of fiction because of his dad. My what I write, literary fiction, just has no tangent to off to my dad. An example
Right.
of it was when my a thousand page novel I published was broken into three books. And the first one came out. I thought that because the Snoopy Club worldwide has like 1 million members, I thought, wow,
Oh.
this would be really good. If just 1% of those people buy this side of Jordan, I will have a bestseller. Well, apparently that did not even happen. Hardly anybody did. So I guess what I'm saying is that except through my publisher, who published the complete Peanuts in a series of volumes, other than that, and he only published my books. He published my books because he loves how I write literary fiction, but it doesn't make much money. And there's basically been uh, no real gigantic advantage. Maybe some people interview me because I'm son of Charles Schulz, but there are others who didn't know the connection at all.
And yeah, and
So
it's like, oh my God.
yeah, I don't really know. So I don't really know now as Undercity is coming out. I don't know that the advantage has been that great, and I think it's because there is no direct connection, father to son. Like you said,
Yeah,
carrying the mantle of it, carrying mantle forward. Again, had I done a comic strip, that would be
then it'd be
completely
Phil.
different.
Hmm.
Yeah, then there'd be a connection. Other thing is that before Crossing Eden, my big thousand-page novel was published, Dad died.
I'm so
So
sorry.
yeah, so I think because he was published with HarperCollins and Simon Schuster, and of course he knew people at Random House. I think it would have been completely different. My career
Mm.
would be completely different because he would have had the influence and to have him take a serious look at this book. Like for instance, when Metropolis came out, I got a host of rejections, and it was
Mm.
clear that nobody read the book at all. In fact, the person who helped me find the cover said, "I don't believe anybody read even 20 pages of
Oh
that book." And it
no.
should have been published easily. First one. In fact, I asked my associate publisher at Fantagraphics, Eric Reynolds, after he read Metropolis, so what are the chances this book would be rejected? He goes, if they read the whole thing, he goes, zero. Nobody's
Hmm.
going to reject that book. And what's funny is it got a lot of rejections, and Fantagraphics was going to publish it anyway. So I wasn't like, oh God, am I going to get published? They were going to publish it, but it won the New York City Big Book Award for literary fiction. So
Wow.
so that was for independent publishers, that
That's
award.
awesome.
And yeah, and so it just shows. So you guys, these people chose it as the best book, and you rejected. In fact, one of the rejections, I'll kind of paraphrase it because I haven't looked at it in a while. The person said, uh, her her evocation of a post-apocalyptic world is, I don't know, impressive or something like that. I said, what? I'm not a her, and it's not post-apocalyptic. Did you read any of the book at all? Did
It's
you?
most likely
What
not.
is it? No, probably not. So that's I don't know. I
But I'm
guess
sure
as
that's
long.
pretty frustrating. I'm sure. Like, come on, guys. Like, what are we doing? And I don't. I know. Do you feel like today's time, like that we live in, a lot of people aren't reading books?
Yeah, well, I would say the truth is that by numbers, more people read now than ever have.
Really?
But
Even social media? Wow.
sure, well, in social media, people have to read. I think it was really funny when people talk about how, well, people on the computer, kids on the computer, I mean, they're not going to read, and they're losing ability to write. Okay, you know, I think is behind that is like TV executives because instead of watching TV, can we just get them from the TV and away from those computers? But you think about it, so kids have to learn to type, which I would guess when I was young, unless you had a typing class, nobody knew how to type, right? And
Right.
then and then to be on social media or whatever you're doing, you have to read. People read, 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 read. So I mean, I don't really consider that reading for literary fiction. I even tease my girlfriend. I say, "You don't read." She goes, "No, years ago I used to read. I read Stephen King and John Grisham." I go, "Okay, okay," but now she goes, "Well, I read the L.A. Times and she reads on the computer all the time." But I said it's not exactly the same. Although I don't
Yeah.
I don't denigrate people what they read. I read Stephen King and John Grisham. I read all popular novels myself, but I also read literary fiction. I
Yeah.
read widely, and it has fed constantly into my fiction. So I don't know. It's world is complicated. Just at a certain point, you realize, as you say, it is what it is, and there's nothing I can do about it. I do have a publicist, and but I don't feel I'm not really sure. Um, I did an interview with a guy from Atlanta the other night, and we were talking about this. I don't really know how you get invited to the big party, into the mainstream media. I don't really know how that happens.
Hmm.
So I just sort of accept that I think what you have to do is you have to write the best you can. Norman Mailer said, trying to write a bestseller is like marrying for money and not love, and discovering that the absence of both is more onerous than expected. He said, People should write what interests them
Hmm.
mostly." And I think that's true. You want to write the best as best you can, um, and then just see what happens. Uh,
Yeah. I agree with that. What inspired Undercity? And I'm curious, like, like what inspired you to explore those kind of themes now?
well, yeah. So Undercity is sort of a sequel, but more companion to Metropolis. And I started Metropolis. I saw an early computer file on it, the first 50 pages or so in 2001, and a little bit added to it a little bit in 2003. And then I didn't look at it at all for 16 years. The idea was to write a book about war, and simultaneously I was influenced by a book that came out by Edwin Black called War Against the Weak, about eugenics, the rise of the eugenics movement in the United States and in Britain, and supported by Winston Churchill and Henry Ford and Margaret Sanger and a lot of luminaries. And eugenics was taught high school. Eugenics is a was the idea of eugenics is a word invented by Francis Galton, a Brit. It means well born, and the idea is to make the best people in society, offer the best opportunities, which we do in classrooms, right? You have STEM programs and people at higher classes. That's actually a function of eugenics. You're taking
Mm,
the best kids and moving them on, and the others, well, that's just how it works out. So we don't really recognize it as eugenics. The last eugenics, I guess, in California would have been a law forbidding Down syndrome people from marrying. Right now, it's overturned, but all these things are eugenics, and again, it was thought very highly of, which you can see understanding. The good part we see with classes, advanced placement, and all that sort of thing. Um, but it ended up at Auschwitz, is what it was, where you got rid of the worst people, and that's what
mm,
Metropolis and leading into Undercity is about. A society decides that the infirm, the feeble-minded, the sociopathic, um, the lazy need to be are dragging society down. In a sense of what
mm,
Trump was talking about, immigrants are poisoning our blood, right? And
mm,
it's what happened in my book. It's about what happens to a republic who decides to get rid of those people. So first thing they do is they clean out 3 districts of the city, put people on trains and ship them off to the hinterlands of the east, and hoping they're just all going to die out there. But they don't, and they have some horrible years. But then finally they create a society out there with the people who are living up there. The book actually takes place in. I stopped in 2003 because I didn't know where it was taking place geographically. My main character, Metropolis, was a college senior, and he's studying the Greeks and the Romans. So I didn't understand how he could study the Greeks and the Romans in a fictional society, and I didn't understand where this book was taking place. And then I realized it's really taking place in what we know as France, but it's as though history. A college professor of mine said he says like history bifurcated 1,500 years ago and created the society. It's similar to us, different
mm.
cars, but a lot of stuff is the same. Um, anyway, the society decides they want that land back that they cast these people, these feeble-minded people out into, and then starts a war that's been going on for 60 years. Meanwhile, back at the Metropolis, people who escaped the trains went underground into the catacombs and the caverns and the tunnels and started a world down there. About maybe 1 million people live underground underneath the city. If they come up, they can be arrested for violation of geography and most often gassed or shot.
Mm.
So it's also a parallel in a way. I didn't really conceive it that way, but I was aware of it, of, say, living in Nazi Germany in the 40s, right, with the
Yeah.
big wars going on in the Soviet Union, right? What in my book I call it desolation, but that's really what the war was out there. The Nazis, I don't know if you know it, but the Nazis, they killed 25 million Russians, Soviets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
25 million people.
Crazy.
Yeah. And
Pretty
then, so anyway,
crazy.
in my book, the counting machines of Metropolis have stopped counting the number of deaths because it's millions. So, um, so the people have survived underground, and so Metropolis has one narrator, Julian Breen, the college senior. Undercity has not only one character, Marco Grinnell, who has sort of grown up above and below ground, um, but it has a lot of other voices: a thief, seamstress, cleric, um, policeman, uh, just a lot of gypsies, a lot of people talking about this world and describing it. So it's actually Undercity is really easy to read in that you don't really have to start from the beginning. Like for example, you could pick up a copy of it and just open it anywhere to one of these vignettes and just read. Most of them are actually pretty short,
I
and you
like
can.
that.
And they don't have anything to do with the plot of the book, so you can read it at different rates. Those, and I think they're very fun to read. But anyway, that's what the book is about, and there has to be a resolution, and there is. My publicist was saying, is there any hope in this book? I go, yeah, just don't tell me. Okay, but I mean, there has to be some joy at the end. Well, okay, but no, don't tell me. Okay, I won't tell you, but it has a very satisfying ending. It's a very, I feel like Metropolis has a happy ending.
Okay.
Undercity has has a bittersweet ending, but a greater ending than Metropolis because of it how it all finishes out. But I think they're pretty fun to read. I was just reading it this morning and looking at some in Metropolis. I liked it. But they're long books. They're long books. I didn't know they were going to be so long, but there's stories to
They-
tell. There's stories to tell. Yeah.
I love that. Your work often centers on resilience and the humanity in dark circumstances. Why are these themes, I guess, so important to you?
Because there always has to be hope. It's what Faulkner wrote about or spoke about in his Nobel literature winning prize speech. He talked about we will not only what's the word uh, not only survive but I don't know, excel or something. I can't remember how he said it, but that yeah, I do believe there's always hope. I mean, um, Nazi Germany and the Empire of Japan had to be destroyed to end. But out of that destruction, because both those countries were just annihilated by the Allies, out of it came two really wonderful societies, modern Germany as we know it, and Japan. Very steadfast friends of ours, except maybe now where our administration doesn't want to have any friends, right? But yeah, the wheel of history turns, and when we're living in a certain moment, we can't really recognize that. We don't see like you asked about reading, people more reading. Well, I read a James Jones short called The Soldier set in World War II. And they have this little squad that's supposed to be watching on East Oahu, right, to see if the Japanese are going to come. And from the spot up there, by the way, they could see Kaneohe and see Kailua. But they're talking about they're trying to choose a squad leader. And since one of them had graduated sixth grade, they made him the boss because they considered him brilliant just because he got that far through grade school.
Wow.
Yeah, as though a sixth grade education was worth a bachelor's degree, and
Wow.
so probably a bachelor's degree was worth a PhD back then. I don't know. High school degree would definitely seem like a college degree because a lot of people just didn't go through school that much, and not that many people didn't read as much as they do now. A
Yeah.
bestseller was very just read, was maybe 20,000 copies or something like that. But still, so I don't know. Does that answer the question? I forgot what the question was, but
No, I
it's
think you
something.
answered it great.
Thank you, thank you.
Um, Undercity follows a large cast of characters because, and I
Yeah.
always wonder, when somebody has a lot of characters and stories,
Uh-huh.
how do you approach building such layered, uh, interconnected lives on the page? Because I would be like, what? Wait, because it has to make sense. It has to, like, that seems like a lot, but you're the expert.
Well, I just made them all up. So my publisher, in fact, when he was reading Undercity, he goes, "It's really hard for me to keep track of all the names of all these people." I said, "Gary, you don't have to. You don't have to. It's they're all it's the characters, all these different voices in Undercity are only connected thematically, not in the plot of the book, nor with each other. There
Gotcha.
are there are connections. You read, you start to see some connections, but it's not important. When you read, for example, The Thief, Fiora Pina, I'm Fiora Pina, I do not live underground. I'm not a stinking rat. She has two vignettes. They're only about 2 or 3 pages, 4 pages long, and she never appears again. She's mentioned later in the book by people passing through the underground. They mentioned, I don't like Fiora Pina, and okay. So, but the seamstress, the uh, yeah, the policeman has no place anywhere else in the book. He has his stories. I think he has I think he has two. They're two. They're like short stories of what they are. That's another way to think. I call them vignettes, but they're really like short stories. And again, they're only connected thematically and also chronologically. They all occur in the past from the main narrative of the book, but at different times in the past. So and if they mention other characters on the book, either in Metropolis or for Undercity, you know what happened to some of those characters, what has happened to them or will happen to them. So it's actually very easy to read. I just made it up. I'll tell you a little quick story about that though. The orphan, I felt there needed to be an orphan because of what happens in Metropolis and then in Undercity with thousands of kids being captured in the eastern provinces and brought to the city and put in was ended up being a big gas chamber. And so I try to write it like this little girl. She's 13 years old and she has a diary. Her name is Flora Vale, and I didn't. So I'm gonna write it like she's on a concentration camp train, and I thought 5 or 6 pages, and it just didn't work for me. Right, 13-year-old girl, what's the train? I thought he got it all wrong, so I gave it up. And then I think a few months later, tried to write it from an adult perspective, and that worked even worse. But then a year ago, May, I I looked at it again. What I was going to do was below after my name is Flora Vale and blah blah blah. I was going to delete everything and write it over. I read it. I'd written 13 pages, not 5 or 6, and it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. I had to just change a couple names. I decided to change the names. It was perfect. And then I picked it up where it stopped, where I'd stopped it like 2 years ago or whatever, and wrote to the end. It all worked out. But here's the weird thing of her diary part. I had no memory of writing it whatsoever. Not a single thing.
Interesting.
I didn't. It's really weird. I had no memory of it, and it's really detailed. The story that's going on when they're on their little town, and then these soldiers come that capture everybody, and people are getting killed, and then on the train, yeah, I read about an account of, were the people who were captured and put on the trains, were they fed or anything like that, and they weren't. And in fact, one of the death trains that started off in Italy, by the time it arrived in Germany, everybody was dead in it. So. But I did it exactly how it was too, or pretty much so. It was really good. It was really. I even used words that I never even used. The little girls. She's talking about how those girls they mess the floor or they mess them, instead of taking a crap or something like that. I don't even use that verb. I don't even use it. They messed it. They messed. So I thought that was odd, but I had no memory. I have a theory as to why I can't remember any of it, and the theory is that I wrote it straight through those 13 pages, and I never looked back. I never reread any of it because I wasn't liking it, so I just wrote it. And because I wrote it without rereading it, I have no memory of reading it, which sort of makes sense. And I moved on to I was working on other vignettes in the book, right, and the main through line with Margaret Brunel. I know all the writing of Metropolis and Undercity it was really easy. Those books were really easy to write. I had just the right voice for it, and so I thought it was fun. It's over now. I was asked, and somebody asked me a couple of days ago, would I write a third part as a trilogy? But I don't consider it a trilogy. It's just they're bookends. They're meant to be together, and that's it.
Right. That's amazing. Wow. I'm curious. Many stories explore, real responsibility and danger of, you know, um, apathy. What conversation do you hope that people, when they read the book, spark among readers? Like when they read this, what do you want people to walk away with? Like what message?
I think that we have to be members of society. That no man is an island. I really think that. I think the biggest problem in America is that we have this notion of the pioneer spirit, but it never is true. The pioneers didn't do all that stuff by themselves. They had help. They had supplies coming from different places, and but we have this feeling that everybody has to work really hard and get on by themselves. Don't worry about other people. I think it's a false notion. I think we are members of society. And I would say, here's the thing. We castigate the German people for not standing up to Hitler, not and allowing the concentration camps to happen and all that. But you. Fortunately, we have had a lot of protests about ICE and immigration policies and racism, and we haven't done very well in America vis-a-vis misogyny, okay, at all. I don't know. It's like Americans hate women. I don't know, but it's really funny. It's really amusing, especially when you hear about people defending misogyny.
Yeah.
But it's ridiculous. So, but I think. I think we have to recognize that we are at a moment in history where we have to remember what we said about the German people. Why didn't they do something? And see that we are at that moment where it's where we have to stand up. And if we're not going to, then we should just shut up about what the German people did in World War II. Because they would say, what could we do? We if you because so far ICE and the Trump administration has not gone as far as the Germans did in just rounding people up and shooting them. But there are people uh, down in Texas, where they said just let us control the border. Everyone who comes across illegally, you put them against the wall and shoot them. And I could see people would like to do that. They would like to. Well, we know, right, with the treatment of blacks in the South in the
Yeah.
Jim Crow era, right? Hang
Yeah.
them, kill them. Um, because when the government, in the case maybe it's just small town sheriff, small town in the South, when they have the power, when the government has the power, it's difficult to do anything. But we still have ability, I think, to turn this around, right? But Undercity, and by the way, I didn't write it thinking about the Trump administration. I didn't. I wrote Metropolis when, again, I conceived it in 2003. I don't remember who's president. It could have been Clinton or, well, no, it wasn't Bush. It could have been Clinton, but I don't know. I have to look back. But uh, so I did, and then when I wrote Undercity, is actually during the Biden administration, just by coincidence. When I was writing Metropolis, people said, "Wow, it's just like Trump." I go, "I don't know. I mean, I made the book up before Trump even came into power, so I don't know about that." I mean, I wasn't like unaware. I thought about it more after I'd written the book, and same with Undercity, because Biden administration had nothing to do with it, but all the Trump insanity. And then the book is written, and I could see these parallels, and so that's how I would answer the question: is apathy is what the problem is. And apathy is what we castigated the German people for. But now we're at that moment in history, and we'll see how we feel. But Americans have been like that. I mean, Americans didn't really care that much about the slaughter of the Indians. We did have a civil war to free the slaves. No matter what anybody says about, it's about states' rights. You have states' rights to have slaves. That's what the Civil War was about, right? So don't fool yourselves. Come on. And but we have these moments where we just don't care. We just don't care. And America is this again melting pot, or it's a hodgepodge of different people. And I think we maybe we don't buy into the idea of a melting pot. Maybe we don't want to have a melting pot. Maybe we don't want those people in. And every group that's come in has been shunned, right? They didn't like the Italians. They didn't like the Irish. Everyone thinks, oh, now they say, well, oh, they're just like us. No, they weren't back then. The Irish didn't even speak English. So, and the Italians had their own communities. That's why you had Little Italy, right? And but we have to rise above it in the nature of our nation, and we're not we're not helped by our own, let's just say, tendency toward apathy. Americans kind of go back and forth. We can be super helpful, and then on the other hand, can be very hurtful and very apathetic in the worst possible way. So that's what Undercity is really about, to conquer that, try to show this is what can happen if we go a little bit farther in that direction. So that's the idea.
And thank you for making that and talking about that, especially now in now's time that we're living in. It's so very important. So thank you. Thank you for that. Gosh, the time is over already. It's insane how 30 minutes goes by. I'm like so mad. I'm like, we should do it again.
Yeah.
So late. This is so great. Where can people find you and follow everything you have going on and coming up?
Well, I have two really good websites that we've made up. They're really fun to do. And so metropolisthebook.com and undercitythebook.com. Very easy to find. Metropolisthebook.com, undercitythebook.com has a lot about, first of all, it's super fun websites. My web designers were upset with me that they're so big. There's so much to look at. They go, it's too much. No, it's not too much. It's great. It's because most websites I find kind of boring. This has
Yeah, me
so
too.
much to look. Yeah. So Metropolis has almost a slideshow of the book, and with quotes, I mean, text from the book,
Nice.
so you see what's going on, and you're not supposed to go to the end and see how it ends. I tell people, look for about 2/3 of it or something. Undercity, conversely, has a little portraits of all of these different characters, and all the people, and of course we had to find pictures of what we thought they might be looking like, and so anyway, that's where you can find the information, and you can buy the book
Nice.
there too. So that's good. It's
That's
fun.
good. Go and
Yeah,
support, go buy,
yeah,
share this interview,
yeah,
support, follow, and please come back. Again, this is
yeah,
so lovely. I had
yeah,
a
yeah,
great
yeah,
time.
yeah, 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 yeah. I'll be glad to come back. It's fun. Lots to talk
Thank
about.
you.
Enjoy your stay.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you
yes.
so much. And
Okay.
thank you all for listening. And always remember to live, love, laugh. We'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.